Hello and welcome back to HMS Odyssey Presents. Today we're in it with Meg Zeek. For the next 3 parts of this segment, we are going through personality and design. Now, those are the numbers on the side, and each one correlates to a different planet. So she's going to go into this and she's going to explain what those numbers mean and how they correlate to you. So I hope you enjoy. If you do, hit the like, drop a comment, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks.
Okay, so from here, we're going to look at the numbers on the side of your chart.
There we go.
So if you look at the very top, and this is just for kind of your understanding, but you've got the personality all in black and you've got the design all in red. The personality, these are going to be your traits that are really apparent to yourself and others, whereas the design is a little more subconscious. For me, and I think for you, we can say it this way also, I like to call the black side your human and your red side your spirit.
Okay.
So that's kind of how I visualize that for people. Now, if you pay attention to that very top number, you've got 1.3 in personality and you have 7.5 in design. The numbers after the decimals, if you notice, are 3, 5. So that is where your profile comes from.
I did not know that. That is awesome. So maybe you're going to go into this, but since it's apparent on the very first one, I'm going to ask, what does the triangle mean?
The triangle?
Yeah, right here.
Oh, so the symbols over there, they're going to be more like showing you the shift. So that relates to your chart. So all of these numbers on the side, and it's a little hard obviously to show you, and you might spend some time kind of mapping them out afterwards. Okay, so the numbers that are inside of your energetic spaces, your centers.
Okay.
Those all correlate to the numbers that are on the sides. The ones that are defined are circled, right? Inside your body graph.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay. And then some of those are highlighted with these symbols on the side.
So this would relate to this? Is that what you're trying to say? Like this one right here would relate to this.
Correct.
And then this one right here would relate to this. Okay.
Yes. So with those are like considered variables that are the symbols next to the numbers, and they really more or less help you to see how the energy is shifting in that area. Cool?
Yeah.
So the numbers before the decimals are what we're going to go over right now, and those are considered your gates. Okay, so if you imagine, a real life gate and then a sidewalk, that's kind of what your gates and your channels are, and then connected to each of these planets or stars, and then the energy that flows. So this is the astrology side of human design right here. So, and I think we decided we were gonna just kind of go through a few, and we'll see if we want to go through the rest of them. But I'll just go down in order of what they mean, and if you want to write some down, or I can always, send you all the information as well. A lot of people start scribbling during this because it's kind of fast and furious.
Okay.
So, you got your human side and your spirit side. So the sun tells us what we're here to communicate. So for you, that 1 represents self-expression, creativity, wanting to make a contribution. So really wanting to make a difference through your own creative spunk, which feels like that's something you're doing, right?
Yeah.
And that's on your personality side. A lot of people, this is really important in business. This is one that I would spend a lot of time on in a business reading. Okay. And then the spirit side is all about democratic leadership. So And again, we kind of just said that you're a leader and you have a lot of different qualities. We're going to hear the word leader a lot through the rest of this reading. I'll tell you that.
All right.
So there's definitely big aspects of leadership within you, and you get to decide how you harness those.
Okay.
The earth is the next one down, and this is like what we say being grounded in is really important for you. So
Okay.
on your human side, it's about being receptive, feeling supported. So you're being receptive, people are receptive to you, you feel supported, and then having like a big vision. So if you haven't, I would be curious for you to sit down, and I have a meditation that goes with this, to kind of figure out like, what is your big vision, your world vision?
Yeah.
Have you done something like that before?
In a roundabout type of way. Obviously different modalities, stretch into this territory. Mm-hmm. So I would love to do your meditation on this. But that's funny. So this one's about receptivity, right? Mm-hmm. So
support.
I'm curious. So if someone doesn't like, I'm gonna say receptivity in the also people hearing me, mm-hmm. Acknowledging. I'd say those are two big parts of that. So if someone doesn't hear and or acknowledge, then they're not going, I'm gonna be less receptive towards them. Is that how?
You're asking if somebody's not receptive to you, then you're not receptive to them, and that's what your chart says? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. So I had a person and I was trying to tell them something, but they didn't even want to like hear or acknowledge what I was saying. They just wanted to hear what they were saying. So.
And that's going to happen a lot. So think about this, where somebody may have a conflicting gate with you in that area, right? Then those are going to clash. And that's just kind of how you know that person, or maybe that topic isn't meant for you and that person, or maybe that person. So sometimes, when meeting like with potential new clients and you're not seeing eye to eye, and it's like, okay, I know that that's not for me. As far as what it means for you though, it's like, it's really more on your side of inner world of how can you be receptive to yourself? How can you support yourself?
Okay.
What is your vision? And being really grounded in that. Now, having that external piece is important for you as well.
Okay.
But is that something we can control?
Okay. Yeah, I just want a little more clarity on that, because that was interesting, because that point with the talking with that person and them not, I just want a little more clarity on that, and I like that. Okay.
Does that help? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
That one's going to show up a couple times in your chart as well, I believe. All right. So then on your spirit side, being grounded in being a listener, a story keeper, which I love. You interview people for a living. Like, how great is that?
This is only new though. This is fairly new, but I do love talking to people, especially people like who can tell a story really well. I can definitely get captivated by conversation.
Yeah, and so part of that for you is being the keeper of story, like empowering them through your listening, like through listening to what they have to say, which is really cool. So again, for both of these, it kind of feels like you need to be grounded in your communications with others, but that is a great thing to focus on, right? How can you give that to yourself? How can you give yourself great communication? How can you show yourself support, empowering your own narrative, right? And so that is something that I would take like a little, I don't know if I would do meditation or journaling, whatever really feels best to you, to say, how can I take, that external piece and create it internally? Yeah. So I thought that one was pretty interesting. I was like, oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
Because usually a lot of these are going to be more so about you than about communication with others. And for you, communication is a big piece.
No, that's actually a really good point, because, I find that, so how we grow up shapes our perception and what we think about in any given situation. So our brain generalizes, distorts, and deletes things that aren't within our realm of perception. So, as I've gone down the spiritual path, I've gone back at events in my head and been like, all right, like, was this like the only perception that I had? It's easier, obviously, like you just said, like it's easier to see other people. So someone can tell me a story and I can see things that they can't see. And then I can be like, well, did you think of it this way? And they're like, oh my God. Like I've been doing that for myself. And I've had quite a few little like, holy crap, like I can't believe I missed that, like type of thing.
There you go.
And it's funny because I go through waves where I can do it very clearly and very effectively. And then other times I'm like, what's the color red? Like I just don't, my brain is like, I'm not going down this fucking rabbit hole. Like it's too much.
Yeah. And we don't want to stay in our head too much either, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, how often do you actually think about grounding yourself? And you don't, right? Like we talked about earlier, like keeping your shoes off, like that's part of grounding yourself. And you don't think about that. So right now it feels like you're creating that process for yourself mentally, and through repetition it becomes an internalized system. So you're totally like, it feels like to me that you're in a perfect path.
Yeah. It's like when I can't go deep and think about whatever it is that needs to be thought about, if I'm thinking about a memory and trying to dissect it in a different way, and it's just not working properly, then I'm like, then I've been a little more understanding, like maybe this isn't the time or the place to like try to figure this out.
Right.
So it's a lot of give and take, because normally I'd be like, well, I was so close, but like maybe there isn't a reason for doing that now. So it's kind of what I've been thinking. So if it doesn't work out properly, being a little more patient with myself about stuff like that.
There you go. But I like it. It's all a growth journey, right? Progress over perfection.
That's right. That's right. I like it.
So your moon is what you are motivated by. And I mean, you probably know the types of things that you're motivated by. And again, I love that you're already on the path, because part of your motivation is sharing resources. And yes, what are you creating? Yeah.
That's very true. And it's funny, ironically, like I've only really stepped into this as of a few years ago. I never minded. I played a lot of sports, so I feel like the way I can describe it is very different, right?
Right.
I've never been a person of tons and tons of things, so I was always fairly protected of the things that I have, because part of growing up, like I would get something and I would keep it until literally it fell apart in my hands. So so like at this stage, like realizing, I'm less of the physical being. Like we're in sports, I'd be like, oh yeah, I can help you out. Like, I'd teach you how to swing a bat or kick a ball or throw a frisbee or, throw the rugby ball or whatever. Like now it's like when people obviously, like the other day I was playing a game and I met this guy and he was like, I had to take a mental health break. And, I didn't want to push anything, but like we started talking. And then like I just said something to him, like just kind of unconsciously for me. It's just something that I know and I do. But like it was like a pop in his brain. He was like, holy crap. He was like, that makes like it like little synapses like came together. So it's actually I mean, this is so cool.
Yeah. So
I like the way you're reading it.
You're welcome. Okay. So the other piece of this is that you're also motivated by natural leadership. So again, leadership is showing up. Natural leadership though, like what does that mean to you? And I think for you, you just kind of described some of it where you're offering things to others. It even goes with asking your friend if he ever meditates. So yeah, just like being in a flow of it rather than I'm the leader, listen to me. Right? So you have that piece of you. And then the other thing that kind of popped up was being a generous ruler. So again, like sharing resources, being a leader, being generous, those are all things that you're motivated by. Now on the spirit side,
wow.
By the way, I love that it's 555.
Yeah, no, it's great. I'm still on the moon in the human, like I just like had like a little like slideshow of moments of my life where people are like deliberating about who should be the leader of this or that or whatever, and they're all fighting about it. And I was just kind of like, like whatever they decide. So I remember like one distinct time, everybody was piled in a circle. We were actually in school and everybody was piled. It was a rare course called Nielo, and it was teaching leadership skills is what it was. There was tons of like events and all kinds of like different little activities that you'd have to try to figure out how to do. And one was like this, it was like a 10 by 10 grid. And they got like PVC pipe and then they put ropes through it so it looked like a spider's web. And the object was to get there was only 15 people in the class, and you had to get everybody from one side of the thing to the next, and no one was allowed to touch the wire, and you weren't allowed to go through the same hole twice. So like everybody's deliberating about like what she should do and this and that. And then there was this one weird awkward gap that was like 4 or 5 feet off the floor, and it was like really thin, and they were all talking about it because we already failed at it twice. And like no one was like listening to my ideas or whatever. And going back to that acknowledgement, and I was like, okay, like I put my ideas out there and they don't want to, and that's it. So everybody was in the circle and the teacher was standing right there, and then I just dove through the hole. It didn't touch a thing, and the teacher was like, what did you just do? Are you serious? And I was like, I made it through, and like, what?
No, everybody else can do it too.
Yeah. No. That hole was kaput now. Like only one. So I jumped through that because that was a problem, because there was like 3 bigger people and there was only 2 really big holes. And I was one of the bigger kids. So, and I wasn't like fat. I was just a bigger kid. Right. So it was funny because we won because I did that time. Huh. And no one wanted to listen to me the first 2 times. It's just crazy. Like that, just like that piece funny. Alone, like there's just like, that's just a sample of like things that
also feels like part of your 3 to me.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to do it.
Yeah, no, but yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, totally. Those 2 are just combined. Like they're a dangerous combo. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I love that one. The moon.
Yay!
I love that one. So
I want you to hold on to that one then.
Yeah. All right, let's jump into 555.
Hold on, because your spirit moon is all about spirituality. So you're motivated by spirituality, by abundance, and even like the act. So, and this could be things that you're like stepping into, the act of surrendering to gain abundance. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That one's a little deeper. Does that make sense to you?
Yes and no.
So,
I'm trying to I'm thinking of like different capacities, because there's been several times where I feel like opportunities have shown up and leadership has kind of played a part of this. So ironically, there's a show theater called the Fox down in Atlanta. It's pretty famous. So Eckhart Tolle, the famous spiritualist from Germany, he was giving a speech there. So we got down to Atlanta a little early because we live kind of far away. And so we went next door and got a burger. And then as we were leaving, there was a homeless guy on the ground in between the restaurant and the Fox. He was sitting at like one of the little whatever.
Yeah.
So I see we're walking and everybody's starting to filter into the show, and everybody's got all these nice dresses on and everybody's dressed fairly nice, right? So this guy is just sitting there and they're all walking around him, and I walked around him, and then I stopped and I was like, this isn't right. So I turned around, walked back, and I only had $5 cash, but I gave him the $5.
Yeah.
And I sat down and I just talked with him for a little while. And when that happened, like at least 4 or 5 more people stopped and gave him money. But I was like, how ironic is it that a homeless man is sitting next to a show about spirituality and everybody is passing him on the street? I was like, how can you consider yourself so spiritual that you paid, like $100 was probably the cheapest seat. And I was like, and they're all blowing by this man. And how can you call yourself spiritual and abundant, especially if you're going to a show like this? Right. If you see somebody down on their luck or whatever the case is, and you just step over him or around him and don't even give him the look. I mean, I did it first. I walked by him and I was like, this isn't right. And I turned double back.
Yeah.
But it was like, I was like, oh my God, like the irony, like how can, man,
that is so really very ironic. Yes.
That really racked my brain for a while.
That would, I think really, rattle me. Definitely.
Right.
Oh, that's right. We were talking about abundance. I was like, where did that, I was trying to connect the dots.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because abundance is accessible to everyone, just everyone doesn't always know that. So, and you're more abundant the more you share your abundance.
Absolutely.
Right? And that makes me kind of sad. That story made me kind of sad, Brent.
Yeah, no, it's like one of those little things. It's like, I almost saw it as like one of those like little things where it's like the what would you do TV show, you're put into a scenario and then they see how you react, and then afterwards they're like, haha, like that was a test. And I was like, what if that homeless dude came out on stage and was like, all of you just walked and stepped over me to come to your show that you paid $200, $300, $400 to see, and you claim to be spiritual.
Right.
And then he'd be like, where's that kid that stopped and sat down with me and gave me $5? Like,
kind of that same idea of like, everyone's an angel. Like everyone or anyone could be Jesus just walking around the street. Like, it's kind of the same idea. What was that show when we were younger? It was like about angels, but they, took on human form and were just walking around meeting people.
Touched by an Angel.
Yes, Touched by an Angel. Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what that reminded me.
That's so crazy.
And you're grounded in that space.
And it's funny.
Motivated.
All these spiritual groups on Facebook, and then you go in them and they're like, you're not allowed to post, you're not allowed to do this. And I'm like,
if you have a message of positivity and your group like cultivates this, you're not allowed to say anything.
Yeah.
I'm like, is that really spiritual though? Like, what? I could go on about
I have.
So I am digging the moon and me. You know,
I'm glad that you like the moon.
Yeah.
And I'm going to send you some other stuff afterwards because we're definitely on the same page with that.
Yeah.
Okay.